Hello there. Listening to the politicians, experts and those that work within the system, I'm left wondering if anyone actually has a handle on how the NHS works and where the problems really stem from. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe, click the little bell, select all, and then like and comment below. Now, I know little to nothing about the NHS, as well as being a very infrequent user of the service. But looking how it seems to have fallen apart at the seams post-pandemic, and all the proposals being put forward by government and opposition politicians but being pulled apart by medics, you have to wonder who does know how the NHS and the UK private health services work. And the more you read around the subject, the more confusing it gets. And the more that people talk about changing the healthcare system, the more accusations you get of, "You're out to privatise the NHS." And then comes out the favourite line, "The NHS is the jewel in the UK crown," etc. So it must never be touched or reformed, but you must keep throwing more money at it. And then we hear that loads of doctors get fed up in the UK and move abroad, where healthcare funding is different to the pure taxation NHS model. Now, I did a bit of web searching to find out the exact boundary between the NHS and the private healthcare sector, but as far as I could see, they are virtually one and the same thing. The overwhelming number of doctors in private healthcare seem to be made up of out-of-hours NHS doctors, i.e. the same doctors. And they can't cope with this winter crisis anyway. And if they want a specialist X-ray, for example, they send the patient to the better-equipped NHS for it. And it also surprised me to read that it's assessed there is enough spare capacity in the private health system to treat 230,000 more patients a year. Does that mean we have private nurses, doctors and surgeons sat about twiddling their thumbs and earning no money? How can a private setup afford to have so many people sat around not earning fees? Where are the TV ads to get people in on cut-rate healthcare deals and elective surgery then? Or is it charging too much for its services and can be as inefficient as it likes? Or does this actually mean that if we sent patients to the private system, then the doctors and nurses would have to follow on an out-of-hours NHS basis, but earning more for the same work, while the NHS would be left with its capacity to treat patients potentially cut by over 200,000? Now, it's an old report, but back in 2014, the King's Fund said in a report on the UK private health market that it is also crucial to understand that the NHS and the private sector share the consultant or specialist workforce. And share is the important word here. Also, that accurate figures on the number of consultants undertaking private practice are not available. And I'm not sure that situation has changed all that much in the intervening years. Maybe that's the way the BMA and its doctors like it. Who knows? And if we don't know the basics of who works where and when and for how much, how are we ever going to move forwards to improve anything? After all, isn't the patient meant to be at the centre of all of this? Now, I saw recently our intelligence services forensically dismantled at least one government car and found at least one Chinese SIM card embedded inside one of the components within it. That was made public, and suddenly everyone's demanding that the Chinese Communist Party be declared a regime of risk. Well, if we didn't realise what a security risk China posed in the past, then we really have lost the political plot, haven't we? Anyway, this story doesn't seem to indicate inside which car component this SIM card or device was located. For example, Was it something that was installed into a component like an airbag that could connect automatically with the eCall SOS system to send out an automatic emergency call when the unit is deployed after a crash? And more cars are connected these days, both with other components within the car itself as well as with the outside world. In fact, it's arguable that to find a modern car without a SIM device in it somewhere would be the unusual thing. So is this an extra SIM card that was not listed on the spec of the car they inspected? And did they find the card on delivery of the vehicle prior to it being used? Or don't we bother doing things like fully sweeping ministerial cars before and during use? But the incident is being used to sow more distrust of China, with Tory MP Ian Duncan Smith saying, "I don't know how much more the UK needs to know about the threat China poses to us all. Surely it is time to change the integrated review and refer to China as a systemic threat." Now, if you want to make sure that your nation's security is protected where things like cars are concerned, then make sure that you have the capacity to keep building cars that can compete with the foreign competition in a UK-controlled environment, preferably using a UK company with UK-made car parts, instead of outsourcing everything to the cheapest supplier, China, and then moaning about it later. And now that we've outsourced the provision of armoured ministerial cars from Jaguar to Audi, will we be pulling those apart to find out if they have any extra SIM devices we don't know about? And further, was the car they found the SIM in one of the already in-service Jaguar vehicles? And all to save a few bob here and a few bob there, which is always a stupid and short-sighted false economy where the security of the nation is concerned. Now, Sky News has got together with Tortoise Media to set up a new service called the Westminster Accounts. This draws together all the registered information on MPs' extracurricular earnings and donations into one area, in the name of political transparency. It means that for the first time you can easily see the total sums of donations and earnings for individual MPs, something which was previously very difficult to collate and compare due to the way the registers are published, says Sky News. And it also explains that 183 million quid has flowed from rich donors into the pockets of political parties, all-party parliamentary groups, and the campaign funds and constituencies of government ministers and MPs from all political parties. Sky News does acknowledge that on a global corruption scale, the UK is very near the bottom, but that the system is still too murky for comfort. For all the claims of transparency, says Sky News, it's been very hard to see what's going on. Whether through default or design, records of financial transactions from donors and companies to politicians are spread across different websites and platforms, different registers, disclosures and databases. Some online, some in print, and often published in formats that can't be compared or analysed easily. Sky News doing a service for the voters, eh? Or was it more driven by the fact that since 2019, MPs have earned 17.1 million quid on top of their salaries and expenses, with 15.2 million, or 89% of it, going to Tory MPs, and 2.25 million going to Theresa May alone? To which Nigel Farage tweeted in response, "How on earth did Theresa May earn 2.5 million quid from speeches? The globalists look after their own." Is that what they're trying to highlight? Tory MP second job earnings? Also, would it be possible to do the same thing with the members of the House of Lords, please? They vote in Parliament as well. Now, I would expect the lefties to be quite pleased about this, an easy source of info to throw mud at Tory second job MPs. But they and Sky News would probably say it's just to keep an eye on MPs and keep them honest and nip any corruption in the bud. You know, in the same way that voter ID will nip election fraud in the bud. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.